Hey, yo, it's good, everyone. Twisted here with Open Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about remote viewing. Now, we can go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of it in a moment, but first I got to go ahead and mention that I'm having this conversation with my lovely co-host Devi right here.
Absolutely.
Yes, so pretty much this is one of those topics that I honestly felt like her insight would go ahead and help be able to create more so of an illustrious picture of what remote viewing entails for those who are not necessarily experienced with it themselves. And that, I can go ahead and cover more so of the, you know, practical details or, the I guess you can say just like her way of wording is way more eloquent than mine, so that's why I'm bringing her in, and all that sort of thing, you know. But
I
in
mean,
any, but yeah, in any case, so pretty much to go ahead and start, like for people who are unaware, we have done remote viewing sessions before, thus our own familiarity with it, or at least mine in terms of being more so of a host and facilitator for not only yourself but others we have been friends and acquaintances with previously, and helping to go ahead and have these instances where this, what I would say, is a skill for certain. Like, yes, it is, you can say, a psychic gift or a manner of, like extrasensory sort of phenomena or ability, but it is a skill. It's something you could train up, just like anything else. It is something that, you use, your muscles, you can say your psychic muscles, to go ahead and do. And would you say that's pretty appropriate for at least your experiences with remote viewing?
yes, I would say that that is very accurate. Now, of course, like any skills, if you already have a natural inclination towards something, you're going to have an easier time building it up. Like somebody that has a bunch of athletes in their family and that's just in their genetics, they're going to possibly have an easier time with athletic type skills. Honestly, if you have these kind of gifts to begin with, it's more easy to apply. But everyone has the ability. It's just learning what muscle to use.
Oh yes, and when you think of like the actual physical body in of itself, like yes, like consciousness, extrasensory perception, all that sort of thing, you think of the brain. But in a sense, like yes, while it is called remote viewing, at least from my understanding of it, it could entail like being able to sense things from far away with other manners of senses as well. Is that appropriate?
Yes, so it depends on how your brain is able to interpret things. And with that, I am going to go into visualization of anything realistically. And we talked about the visual scale before, correct? Um, where we had talked about, what is it, aphantasia?
Uh, I know that we
I
have
believe that's the
amongst
word.
ourselves, but I do not necessarily know if we have done so on record.
Okay. So aphantasia is the inability to actually picture things in your mind. So your other senses may be involved, or it may just be words. It depends on how your brain works. So with my brain works with perfect images. And I know that sounds like, oh, ha ha ha, perfect images. I'm sure it does. Like, it sounds a little hoity toity, haughty kind of thing, but it's not. It is more so if I take a picture of an apple, not only can I see the apple, see the texture of the peel, I can smell the apple, I can taste the apple, I can feel the texture on my teeth. Like, there are a whole slew of other senses that are involved with my own perception. So, dependent on how your perception is and how you interpret the world around you, is going to greatly impact on how well you can go for remote viewing and things of that nature. Yes, other things are involved: heat, cold, texture, taste, all of that. but it really depends on what kind of system you're running on. Like if we want to put it in like computer terms. Because if the graphics aren't necessarily great and everything's pixelated, you're not necessarily going to get the most clear image. But that can be trained. It's just if you have aphantasia where like you can't imagine things at all, there is no pictures, there is nothing there, like it's just like a black void in your head. From my own experience, I'm not sure how well you would be able to do so. I have a great feeling that other senses would be involved, potentially smell, taste, touch, but I don't know how well the visual images would come through.
Oh, yes. And, in that sort of sense, like, if some people have more so of a natural inclination towards it, then that's wonderful for them. And that is not necessarily a manner of discouragement or saying, oh, just because I'm not good with this, that, I just suck in general. Everybody has their own sorts of, strengths and weaknesses just in life in general. And this includes also skills related to spirituality, psychic phenomena, mysticism, and all that sort of thing. But, when it comes to remote viewing in of itself, right, this is something we actually broached previously. And that's something that, well, shall I say, you broached previously with a former friend of ours, Nebula, in talking about bilocation and remote viewing, which was less about the subject in general, and honestly was just more so of her own adventures in her own remote viewing experiences. So, in that sort of sense, this is more so covering like remote viewing as itself. Now, in mentioning that conversation, there will be a link in the YouTube posting of this for those who wish to listen to that conversation. But in going ahead and making another, mention of a previous conversation, so what exactly is remote viewing in a sense, right? Like what we were talking about senses just before, right? In terms of physical senses, but remote viewing in of itself, what would you classify under in the group of what is deemed declares? Something you talked about with our friend Raven beforehand, and once again, link can be provided for that. However, what would you say it is? Clairvoyance, claircognizance, clairsentience? How would you go ahead and categorize it under that terminology?
That is a very hard thing to state because it kind of encompasses all of them, in my own experience. And that is, honestly, I'm going to state that depends on the person that is receiving. Because when you are remote viewing, you are seeking, but you are receiving. Think of it as like sending out, you know what, I'm gonna use a fishing analogy. It's like you are sending out a fishing line with a little camera on the end of it. And that camera is attached to your brain. And you are lurking through the little dips and everything. You cast it out where you want it to go, and you just have to receive the information. You don't necessarily get full control of what is there, but obviously you're observing. But with that, it's really all of the clairs. It's extrasensory in a controlled fashion instead of just being like an open, what would I call it? Maybe even like an open store, like where people can come in and go as they will, but they have to actually go to you. Your consciousness is going to them. Your ability to see is going to them. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, it definitely goes ahead and makes sense. And with that, like, I know that, once again, you are going ahead and stating that there may be a differential between those who have more of that, more of a vivid sense of feeling for internal phenomena that is, pretty much mirroring that of the external, and then there's a variation for others as well. And, in that sort of sense, like, the skill in of itself can encapsulate just about all the different, terminology that has the prefix of clair associated with it. Once again, clairvoyance, clairsentience, let me pronounce that correctly, claircognizance, and then even things like what was it for tasting? Claire Gustins, I believe.
I believe it's Claire Gustins.
Yes.
Um, mhm.
But yes, so in that sort of sense, right? Like, it can go ahead and encapsulate the sort of thing. So you can say, depending on the person, it's more so of a scale, you know?
Mhm.
And with that, right? Like, so in remote viewing, as the phrase goes ahead and interprets, right? You're viewing something or experiencing something from afar. Now, how does one go about in actually doing that? We've talked about just like categorization, all that other sort of shit. But how does one go about and actually do it? Now, in terms of it, there is a book that I would like to go ahead and recommend. That once again, we and also people we have previously interacted with have gone ahead and read for themselves, amidst many other books, but this one in particular was the one that we primarily utilized for reference. And that is Limitless Mind, A Guide to Remote Viewing and Transformation of Consciousness by Russell Targ, and an introduction by Gene Houston, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yes, so that book right there has the experiences, or at least some of the experiences, some of the anecdotes and methodology that Russell Targ utilized in his own work. Now, what is it about Russell Targ's work that you can say adds a bit of legitimacy to it? Well, he was someone who was doing this for the CIA, of all organizations and agencies, because for those who are unaware, even though this is not really a secret any longer, the CIA was running, and I'm sure still does, running programs to try to find individuals that were very psychically gifted, so that way they could use it for applications of national defense, under that terminology, or, any sort of spying, or whatever the case may be. And in trying to go ahead and utilize in this capacity, right, they were looking for individuals, just like Russell Targ, or a man like Ingo Swann, or even children in the American school system. Like, there is a program that some people may be aware of, and those who may be listening, that is called the GATE program, and that's called the Gifted and Talented Education Program. Now, the thing about it is, it's generally about like the aptitude of a student overall, and it can just primarily be about scholastics. But this was I'm trying to think of the terminology. It was a pipeline that also went ahead and was utilized to try to highlight and find those who were actually psychically gifted. And there's quite a few anecdotes, quite a few stories that you can find across the web and also in books and such, where people speak about the GATE program or other means and avenues of being initiated or brought into this program in of itself. And not only that, it's not just something that America, the United States, was happening to do, but it's also something that China even happened to do. There's a particular article from a magazine publication called Omni that was issued for January 1985. And the thing about it is, it's talking about, once again, China trying to go ahead and seek out within their own population children who are psychically apt and gifted to use for, these sorts of applications and whatever else they felt the inclination to as well. Now, there is actually a CIA copy of this article that was declassified in 2000 that I'll provide as a link in the YouTube posting of this for those who wish to go ahead and read it and browse themselves. But nevertheless, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings on, either the CIA's general overall work, or to whatever you recall of Russell Targ's work, or Ingo Swann's work, or them trying to go ahead and find children who are gifted and hone these abilities for, whether you want to say it's altruistic reasons or more so of military based purposes?
So I've seen definitely some videos where these people that were found were brought in to military type things. But I can pull from my own experience of doing the testing and everything like that. It was the weirdest fucking thing I've ever done in my life, and it felt so off and awkward and just, it's very strange, because when you're a child, and I think I was like 8 or 9, if I remember correctly. Um, you don't necessarily remember taking tests. that's that's not things that you recall. That's not things that you
That's not
remember.
what
You
we're
don't remember.
prioritizing at that time. No.
No, but the whole situation around it was so fucking weird that I remember taking these tests, taking these series of tests, and like I recall like the algebra of it. Like I'm literally seeing the numbers and the letters on the page where it was technically it was basic algebra, but because I didn't have exposure to it, it wasn't something that I understood at the time. Now, in retrospect, I do understand it, but I didn't understand it at the time because of exposure.
Yes.
But the whole, it was like they rented out an entire elementary school. There were at least 50 to 100 students there, which is insane. And then they broke us up all into little classrooms to test. And it was the weirdest experience I have ever had. Because, one, who does that? Two, it just, all of it felt wrong.
Erase your
And,
hackles.
like, it did. Now, obviously, there is a lot more from my own background that was also there that I will not be getting into at present, but
Yes.
it was a very, very off situation. Now, in terms of this, I did not end up getting into the program. Thank God. And genuinely, like, I am thankful that I didn't. But my brother did, because he was younger than me. Well, still is younger than me. Haha, younger brother was. We're gonna
Yeah.
correct that.
Good job.
Um, I know, but I just remember his rage issues becoming really, really prevalent within a few years of him getting in, and that's where, you know, I could not. I could not, and eventually he got himself out of it, which is fantastic. But it was a very strange thing. The testing was weird. I have seen a lot of accounts where the people don't even remember what they did in the classroom. It was like they went into the classroom and their minds went blank afterwards. And I have seen that account multiple times, over and over again.
Oh, yes.
Um, and I'm just like, you know what? I was protected. I'm happy. I was protected by something. I
Yep.
fucked up just enough to not get in. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and like as you're saying, like not even just through the gate program, but just a lot of the different sorts of operations that have been documented and all that. Whether you want to say declassified sort of documents from the CIA themselves, or just general accounts, whether it be books by Russell Targ or Ingo Swann or anybody else within the intelligence community, or even those who you could say were victims of the intelligence community and those sorts of things, including Julia M. Angles, a author that we've read previously. And for those who are unaware, go ahead and listen to, I don't know if there's audio of it, but go ahead and read the works of Julia M. Angles and her experiences in growing up with parents who were associated with the intelligence community and all these sorts of abuse that she went through. But nevertheless, right, like these sorts of things, like pretty much mind wiping afterwards and all that after the operations are done, not necessarily something that is, unheard of for sure. And honestly, like the thing about it is that yes, I do think that there was a manner of the divine or source or God or whatever being like, you know what, we're going ahead and saving your butt. We're saving your behind for whatever reason. And that is not to say that there isn't a manner of divine protection for others who may have been put into the program, but I think it may have been just like, hey, look, this is not the route that you need to particularly take. Whereas for others, maybe I know you've gone ahead and talked about this previously yourself, but some people, due to going through hardships, going through trauma, like their psychic abilities, their psychic senses kind of go ahead and like crack open, like as they become more so
Hmm.
exposed and going through these sorts of things. It makes it to where they're not as confined or restricted by their five material physical senses, and that's kind of like the push that is needed for them to go ahead and have the extrasensory things uh, come into fruition, for better or for worse, depending on the person.
Yeah, and that I would definitely agree with. And due to probably my own background of already being cracked wide open,
Yes,
my mind was just like, no, I don't. We're not doing this. We're not
yeah.
doing it. This is not
Like
for
I
us.
already dealt with enough
And that's
bullshit.
okay.
Yeah, already dealt with enough bullshit. Don't need to stack up an unnecessary amount further. But um,
Preferable, yeah,
yeah.
preferable.
But nevertheless, right? So remote viewing, like, how does it generally work? I know that in my very rudimentary trying to go ahead and explain it, I'm trying to more so put it into scientific terminology that does not do it justice, but this is part and parcel of why, once again, Devi is here. If we go ahead and word it in a way that is probably going to be better illustrated for those not only just interested in the subject, but may want to go ahead and take it up for themselves, and maybe going ahead and knowing what to expect and all of that. So for me,
Mhm.
when I think of it, this is kind of like a general sort of thing for a variety of different phenomena, but in remote viewing or remote experiencing, because you're going ahead and utilizing your consciousness and kind of like transporting that viewer and that viewing manner to a different location or time. You're pretty much bending space time in a sense. So we have this 3D conception that space is linear, space is finite. We are in a particular space and all that, whether it be our homes or at work, at school, at the grocery store, at a concert, whatever it may be. And we are confined to the space, and we must go ahead and do a linear from point A to point B and then to point C and all that sort of thing. But obviously, those who have at least some surface level manner of understanding of the modern sciences knows that space time can go ahead and be bent. It can be folded. You can say, with a popular example of like putting a dots on a piece of paper and then folding it, and then you can go ahead and stick a pen or something through it, and then showcasing that. I forget exactly what piece of media that was used as an example of, but I was trying to go ahead and more so illustrate, like, traveling through a wormhole theoretically. But in that sort of manner of explanation, I want to go ahead and pass the torch on to you, Devi, to go ahead and give a better, more so experiential type of explanation.
Okay, so this may resonate, this may not resonate, but this is the way that I understand it just from how I have done things. Um, for me, in remote viewing, it is about one, where you're going it has to be highlighted, right? There has to be some kind of a focus. So laser focus of what it is you're trying to look for. Two, imagine your consciousness filling that space like water. Like every single atom in that space is you. Every aspect is you. You are able to view this thing from every possible position. Um, and I know that's probably a very abstract way to put it. But if I am, like, say, I'm trying to make my mind go across the street real quick, I am imagining and feeling the concrete underneath my bare feet. I am feeling the wind of the cars moving past. I am smelling the grass that is over there and the exhaust from the cars moving by. Like, there is very visceral things to take in. But overall, it is me picking a space, whatever space that is, and filling my consciousness with it. It becomes a container for me. And just like I said, with casting that fishing line, we have dictated where it needs to go. We are casting it. Now, once we cast it, we fill that space with our mind, and we try to take in as much information as possible. Now, that in itself is a very difficult feat. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, this is the easiest thing, you know. Ho, 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 easy as cake. Guess what? Baking is hard. Cake is not easy. You can fuck up cake real easy. So, in order to practice, you need a group. And this is what you and I were going to talk about next anyway. You need a group, because you need other people to verify these things for you. I don't mean a group of yes men. A group of yes men will fuck you up every goddamn time. It doesn't matter if they are your best friend and they want you to succeed. If you are not seeing it, you are not seeing it. And there was, what is it? Like, I'm trying to remember. It was like an episode of something where the girl is supposedly a psychic and she is able, or a telekinetic, and she is able to bend spoons. And because of her stress level, she wasn't able to do it. So she was faking it by bending the spoon against the chair. If your brain is tired and you are not in that space, you need people to be able to tell you, no, you're not getting it, and we will try again in a little bit, but for right now, please rest.
Yes. Yeah, and when you go ahead and mention, I don't know what piece of media you were alluding to, but having people there, you know, we were going to go ahead and broach it anyways, that, you know, having people there, either a one-on-one sort of session, so say, for example, Devi and I, go ahead and doing so, or say Devi and I amongst, you know, friends, acquaintances, associates, whatever, going ahead and having sessions as we have actually done previously, that, you know, go ahead and once again provide that verification, or the particular terminology being VPG, or verified personal gnosis, as Devi has gone ahead and talked about quite a bit beforehand, just amongst ourselves, and also as a topic that I can go ahead and post a link for in the YouTube posting of this. The particular title was SPG, UPG, and VPG, and types of personal gnosis. And that conversation was had with a friend of ours who went under the moniker Benign Fool, and sharing those sorts of anecdotes about these various manners of gnosis. But nevertheless, right, actually having a group setting, actually having it to where it's someone who can reflect to you. You can use it in a manner of reflection, a mirror in a sense. Not a mirror in terms of bouncing off and being a yes man, like Debbie was going ahead and stating, or yes woman, to be fair and equal, but making sure that you have someone reliable to be able to tell you the accuracy of things. So, there is a particular method that we utilize in those sessions of, you know, pretty much making it to where you go ahead and make markers and tags for different items, and then have people try to interpret what they are. And you can go ahead and say, have a phone call or some sort of online chat, you know, Skype, Discord, whatever, and having these sorts of sessions or things, or even by text after someone goes ahead and, you know, leaves it and you get a notification of it and all that sort of thing. And then maybe they show a picture afterwards. But nevertheless, right? So the idea here is that while this being a magical operation, you can utilize something particular like a sigil or a different sort of symbol or talisman or amulet or whatever the case may be. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you just take a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper, or a sticky note if you're going to stick it on an item, go ahead and write down about 5 or 6 characters, a string of characters. Like, say you could get from, an online CAPTCHA, something randomly generated, and something that, is just more so of a targeting code to use. Now, in that, right, for example, you can have like ABC123 or A1B2C3, something like that, or whatever manner and jumble of not only letters but numbers, maybe specialized symbols like an @ sign or a exclamation mark, or a period or a Batman symbol, if you want to include that. I don't know, your own manner of symbology. But then you go ahead and you have a dash, and then you put some sort of identifier, you can say. So if you're doing a one-on-one session, both people are practicing the remote viewing. I have right here, once again, for example, A1B2C3 and then dash and then say Kurt, for example. Just a random name I thought of. Or you can say Betty or Sue or David or whatever is appropriate. Or you could even use a moniker. So for example, like I could go ahead and put TWSD for Twisted, and so on. But nevertheless, going ahead and having that particular sort of thing that someone can hone in and focus on, because you want to have a focusing point. And with that focusing point, you can put it on a piece of paper, sticky note, on an object, or a location or a place. And in doing so, once you have established what that is, you can share it with whomever you are collaborating with, whomever you are doing this exercise with. And they have to go ahead and hone in and focus on that particular code, that identifier, and then go ahead and report back what it is that they are visualizing or experiencing in other sensual manners and all that. Whether it be hearing things, smelling things, tasting things, touch, whatever happens to come across. And, is there anything from your own experiences that you can happen to recall of, like, say, the exercises using this method that pops into your head at the moment, just off the top of the head? All right, go ahead.
So when we had done this in a group setting, of course, we were over a Discord call. We had, 4 or 5 of us participating, and it could get very loud. What I am going to recommend, you want your own mind and your surroundings as quiet as possible. And it's not necessarily as like a, shut the fuck up kind of thing. It is more of, you do not want other input throwing you off course. And I found for myself, once we had the code, we knew what we were focusing on, I had to literally mute everything. I muted myself, I made sure I couldn't hear anybody else, and I had like some kind of a like a Hertz music going on in the back, so there were no words, there was nothing to focus on there. It was just like melody or just noise, but it wasn't distinctive noise in a sense. And from there, I was able to get the clearest pictures. Because if you have people just shouting out like, oh yeah, I think it's round, and then you get that echo chamber of, yeah, it's round, and yeah.
That can muddy the waters.
No. It will literally cloud it so badly that you will feel like you have done nothing. So once you get your codes, once you get your, focusing points, shut everything off and go quiet. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes, maybe not even that long, maybe like 3 to 5 minutes, and see what you get. I know when I had done so, and like I said, my own sensory things are more tangible. And I'm sure you recall this instance as well, because it was your code, and I was living across the country at the time, and, long fucking ways away. And I just remember my eyes were closed, my hands were in front of me, and you know whenever you have acrylic nails on, like, of course, as a guy, you might not know, but there is a tapping. There is a texture of tapping that happens in the nail bed, and there is a feeling that happens there. And so I'm like, all right, I can hear it tapping. I can feel it tapping. It's hard. It's not a rock. It sounds like plastic. So I'm getting plastic. I run my fingers over it in that moment, and I can feel little holes on it. And so I'm feeling these little holes on it. I'm seeing it attached to something else. It looks like it's attached to the bottom of a phone. But that wasn't necessarily correct. It was an aspect, but not necessarily correct. And I saw that it was black. It was black. It was matte. It wasn't shiny. I had no idea what it was, though. I was just getting all of these textures, all of these textural type of things, and all of this information, but I wasn't able to necessarily see the full thing of what it was. And then we went back on, and everyone's giving their notes, and I encourage you, write down what you see. Do not be discouraged or anything by somebody else's observations or anything like that. Write down what you see, share it with the group, and then do the reveal. And so tell us what that object was.
All right, so as far as I can recall, I think that was a wireless Bluetooth speaker that was more so widened, and all that sort of thing. Kind of like, if I can go ahead and make a parallel to something that's more so in common usage, kind of like more so one of those sound boxes or whatever it's called, like, you know, pretty much you put it in front of the TV and all sort of thing, is more so longer, but a smaller version of that. I forget the particular title, but yeah, so wireless Bluetooth speaker. And out of all the people in that practice session, Debbie was the one who was able to nail it most accurately and best. Other people, they were able to get some attributes, but she was very much more so able to go ahead and nail it down in that particular instance. And truth be told, in most instances, when we were running those sorts of exercises, and for it's one of those things where it comes down to, yes, natural aptitude. Like, hi, Debbie is very much very much apt and well when it comes to mystical things, but also it's a skill. It's something that is refined over time and what have you, due to whether, actually trying to do remote viewing as a particular practice, or just through overall, like, building up the psychic muscles and such. But yes, you were definitely on point with what it was at that time. And I go ahead and want to mention not just lingering in the past, and more so just like giving you your kudos, which you definitely deserve, but showing that as an example of, for those who are interested, who may be listening, that want to go ahead and practice remote viewing for using objects like that, or even just like, different sorts of like locations or other objects, or maybe even like people or whatever application you find like useful or important. You can go ahead and do so, and it can go ahead and it'll take some time. You'll have to go ahead and, just like anything, take it day by day, step by step, but you can reach levels of more and more accuracy if you're just willing to put the work in. And to that, would you go ahead and agree?
Absolutely. And you can't get caught up in the excitement. You can't get caught up in the roar of other people and their experiences and things like that. If you are constantly trying to chase somebody else's experience, you will never have your own. So just because this is how I experienced it does not mean that's how you're going to experience it. Doesn't mean that's how Twisted is going to experience it. Doesn't mean that's how my kids are going to experience it. Everyone has their own ways of interpreting everything in the world. I can't even say for sure that anybody sees colors the same way that I do. And that was a very pertinent lesson that was taught to me by a history teacher back in high school because, you know, class discussion, and of course I'm veering off topic, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Go for it.
I see the tree as green, and he looks at it and he says, I see it as orange. Can we verify that either of us are right or wrong if that is genuinely how we see it? No. No, we can't. It is more a factor of perception and how you're seeing things. And you can't dictate how other people see things. Now, in a very real sense, obviously we know chlorophyll and this, that, and the other, and da 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 da. And of course, people can be color blind. So
Yes.
sometimes things will be off. What I have also learned in this is that sometimes certain aspects of what you see may be functionality versus actuality. So say you see somebody painting a wall, but you're seeing this tiny little thing in your hand that, you know, it's glass and plastic, and you're just like, what the fuck is that? And I'm seeing painting on a wall. Maybe it's nail polish. Maybe it's nail polish. So it's dependent on how you receive that information. So don't beat yourself up. None of this is here to, you know, beat you up with. It is more to expand your own knowledge base and flex those muscles.
Yep. And whether it is by picking up Limitless Mind by Russell Targ, or going ahead and maybe there's, you know, another video that can go ahead and help, or, you know, some other sort of text or whatever sort of reference material, I'm going to go ahead and say dive into those sorts of things outside of just us covering it ourselves. But not only just reference of like other experiences or practices or methods, even though the method that we went ahead and provided is definitely good to utilize, but just if you have an interest in it, go into it. Expand your own psychic and mystical phenomena. Go ahead and make it to where you're allowing yourself the capability to go ahead and hone these sorts of skills, whether it's something you primarily want to do, or it's something that is like, you know what, I have some level of experience in this area, and see what happens. Why not? And all that sort of thing. And once again, work with at least one more individual, but a group is more so ideal if you want to go ahead and take turns, and honestly, if you want to say allow yourself a little bit more so time to recharge, or give a variety of different places or items that can be utilized and such. Is there anything else that you want to go ahead and mention in the conversation before we go ahead and wrap this up?
No, I mean, this is great exercises to use for remote viewing, and don't get discouraged. I mean, shoot, reach out to us. I'm sure both of us could use practice anyway. It just make sure it's people that you trust, because obviously this does go into woo-woo land, but hi, we live in woo-woo land.
Yes, we are woo-woo people.
We are woo-woo people, and it's fine. It's just, if somebody is sitting there and telling you, like, this is bullshit, this is blah, 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 you don't need that with you. You don't even need to try that. Like, you are never going to convert somebody into belief, even by showing them. Because if they are so strong in their disbelief, that is what it is, find somebody else.
Yes. And with that, just, you know, find your people, all that sort of thing, and go ahead and make it happen. Do damn thing. Start remote viewing if that is your interest, if you want to go ahead and expand. So, with that having been said, this has been Twisted and
Devi.
Yep, with the Open Sorcery, and stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.
Have a good one, guys.